All across this ancient world, there are things we can't explain. Feats of engineering we have yet to match from a forgotten period in history that, even though it is forgotten, the remnants of this glorious period in history are dotted all over the place in huge numbers. Thousands and thousands of giant stone structures weighing hundreds of tons and thousands of tons in some cases, all carved out of a single piece of rock before being apparently transported and raised into place without any clue as to how it was done. One such place that on the surface appears to be Roman in origin, but under further inspection we find that the foundations are what the Romans actually built upon, meaning that this place was already at this location before the Temple of Jupiter was built on top of it. This is the case of the Romans building upon the ruins of the gods. Wait, do you hear this? How was it done is the age-old question. Well, whoever originally built the foundations at this temple were so advanced, and we can't stress this enough here, so advanced that we don't know or understand how these giant stones were carved, moved, and levitated into place. We simply don't know. Baalbek is an ancient Phoenician city located in what is now modern-day Lebanon, north of Beirut in the Bekaa Valley. Inhabited as early as 9000 BCE, Baalbek grew into an important pilgrimage site in the ancient world for the worship of the Phoenician sky god Baal and his consort Astarte, the queen of heaven. The name Baalbek means Lord Baal of the Bekaa Valley, by the way. The center of the city was a grand temple dedicated to Astarte and Baal, and the ruins of this early temple remain today beneath the later Roman temple of Jupiter, Baal. The cornerstones of the earlier temple have been found to weigh over 100 tons, and the retaining wall monoliths weigh each 300 tons, leaving present-day archaeologists, scientists, and historians mystified as to how the stones were moved, where from, and in what way they could have been manipulated into place. These blocks and another 3 of these enormous stones 1 mile from Baalbek, which weigh over 900 tons each, one thought to weigh in excess of an eye-watering 1,700 tons, are known today as the Baalbek stones and have been the subject of much debate, study, and conjecture over how they were moved and arranged. Further questions arise as to why such massive stones were necessary at the site and why the columns of the temple are also larger than they apparently needed to be. And of course, the obvious answer is the fact that we were either ignoring something of major importance, categorizing important historical texts as mythology, or we are missing the bigger picture completely with our arrogance. Later builders at the site, such as the Romans, used these early stones as the foundations for their own temples, but clearly did not move them in any way whatsoever. The immense weight and mass of these stones has led to much speculation concerning alien and ancient activity at Baalbek, and even that the site was an ancient landing pad for spaceships or Viamana. None of these theories are regarded as substantial by the prevailing scholarly community, nor have they ever been or ever likely to be. Pretty sad that they won't entertain anything beyond what they have already been taught, actually. Alexander the Great conquered Baalbek in 334 BCE and renamed it Heliopolis, City of the Sun. The name still in use in 64 BC when Pompey the Great annexed the region of Phoenicia for Rome. This was still the designation for the city in 15 BC when the city became a colony of the Roman Empire. The Romans vastly improved or restored the ancient site with massive building projects, walkways, aqueducts, and roads. Under the reign of the Emperor Septimus Severus, the Grand Temple of Jupiter, Baal, was built and dedicated as the largest and most ornate religious building in the entire history of the Roman Empire, whose impressive ruins may still be seen today. The Romans recognized Baalbek and the stones found here as something sacred and very ancient, and even created by the gods. These are the largest stones ever cut, moved, and lifted in the history of human civilization that we know of, and all are located at the same location. You get a sense of the sheer size, scale, and effort involved in this when you consider they were transported uphill for a mile or so before being lifted 20 and 30 feet into place. Logs would be crushed for a start, and even if they had rollers that would not break, 10,000 men dragging these things with ropes seems a bit crazy and does not make any logical sense. The simple fact is that this was beyond human comprehension during the Roman times, just like it is today, because just like the Great Pyramids of Egypt, this site is the remnants of an advanced civilization that dates back tens of thousands of years further than we were being forced to understand, and these sites across the globe are the surviving pieces of an ancient cataclysmic event that devastated an ancient culture on this planet as foretold in ancient text. This is the only answer, guys. It is documented in mythology. Maybe we should not have been so quick to conclude that mythology was nothing more than fantastical stories by ancient cultures like the Greeks and Romans, who would fantasize of gods from a golden past. They were closer to this history than we are today, after all, and the answers to this period was said to be housed in the lost library of Alexandria. Once the largest library in the ancient world and containing works by the greatest thinkers and writers of antiquity, including Homer, Plato, Socrates, and many more, the Library of Alexandria is popularly believed to have been destroyed in a huge fire around 2,000 years ago, and its voluminous works lost. Since its destruction, this wonder of the ancient world has haunted the imagination of poets, historians, travelers, and scholars who have lamented the tragic loss of knowledge and literature. Today, the idea of a universal library situated in a city celebrated as a center of learning in the ancient world has attained mythical status. The mystery has been perpetuated by the fact that no architectural remains or archaeological finds that can definitively be attributed to the ancient library have ever been recovered. Surprising for such a supposedly renowned and imposing structure. This lack of physical proof has even persuaded some to wonder if the fabulous library actually existed at all in the form popularly imagined. Documentation of the lost empire, a lost civilization on this earth, whom built all the ancient structures, perished in the Great Library, leaving sites like Baalbek to drift into history as a big question mark. Only now are we beginning to try and understand what went on this earth during the time in which has been lost to us. Also, guys, one of our most loyal subscribers received her t-shirt today, which she got from our Teespring store. This was the first sale that was generated from our design, so our friend Valerie Lynn is the first to own official Lost History Channel merchandise. If any of you guys want featured on our channel, then send in your pics and we'll be sure to include that in our videos. Looking good, Valerie, and thank you very much for showing your support to our channel. We very much appreciate it, and remember, wear that shirt with pride. We will leave it here for now. Some of you may be aware that we recently created a poll on this channel regarding channel support, and the overwhelming first choice that you guys picked was in that of Patreon. So we will leave a link below for that. What do you guys think of the information we have presented to you here today? Comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.
Okay, we're now approaching the main quarry at Baalbek. And this is the one called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. Now climbing up on top of this massive block of limestone.
Biggest rock in the world, eh?
One of them. So this is another massive block of at least 1,000 tons as I crawl uphill in the quarry across the street. Of course, the whole thing was a quarry. And you can see where later cultures were trying to cut smaller pieces from the mega block. And it is possible that originally it was part of this massive limestone outcrop and then was cut and fell in its present position. But the question from there is, why did the work stop? Why did they not manage to either break it into pieces or move it, as they did 3 others, to the actual site of Baalbek, which is at least a mile or 2 in that direction? So we're at the site of Baalbek itself, and this is where we have the transition between manageable and these, which are huge.
Smaller pieces helping the pressure, reduce the pressure from the big ones. Yes, exactly. Yes. So it's the same. Yeah, the same pressure relief. زي اللي بنشوفها ايه في
Now, the Greeks and the Romans were able to do very beautiful work, as we can see here. You see that carving, gorgeous. But in general, they were only able to do that kind of work in either limestone or alabaster. When it comes to a material as hard as granite or syenite, which is what many of these columns are, the hardness of the stone, because of the crystal content and other minerals, is about 7 on what's called the Mohs scale, with the greatest or hardest stone that we know of being diamond at 10. So it's highly unlikely that they were capable of doing this fine, yet perfectly smooth surfaces in the granite or syenite. And the later cultures also were not able very well to work with that material, so we're left with no choice but to look at the idea that an even older culture was here that had forms of technology not available to the Greeks, the Romans, or indeed the dynastic Egyptians. So a site like this at Baalbek, you really have to decode it. It is so huge and so complicated because of the different cultures involved in its construction, and the fact that it's been ruined by later cultures, which is typical. Almost anywhere you go in the world, you find someone built something fantastic, the next culture maybe nurtured it and added on, and then barbarians of some kind come along and just like nuke most of the site and then use it as a quarry. But if we look really carefully, we're seeing definite megalithic, high-tech, lost ancient technology elements here.